What is up, Fanatics? It's 8 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means another episode of Home Theater Fanatics Live. Tonight is episode 115, and we've got a great episode for you. It's going to be stellar, stupendous, momentous, Herculean, if I might say. Because today, we've got someone who's not in the speaker manufacturing kind of world, but he is part of the machine which he rages against. And you'll find out all about that creates this content that we love to consume on all these nice toys that we spend all this money on. And his name is Andrew DeCristofaro. Did I get that right? Come on, tell me.
You did it. Yes.
Welcome to the
You
show.
did
Welcome.
it. I didn't have to give you the evil eye.
I know. You know, what is that little chipmunk thing or whatever? You know, he goes,
Right. Yeah.
you know, that one. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, that's
the one.
Actually, if you need like Foley work done, I do it all with my mouth and eyes.
Oh boy.
Foley with the eyes. I mean, can you hear the glass break?
Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. And you know, there might be somebody out there that doesn't know who you are. So if you could do 45 to 60 minutes on your background, I think that'd be a great way for us to kick off the show today. Oh no, but yeah, just a couple of minutes on who you are and what kind of good stuff you got going on.
Okay. Well, like you said, I'm Andrew DeCristofaro. I'm a supervising sound editor for feature films. I work on IMAX films, and what's now features have become streaming and all this. But what is a supervising sound editor is probably the biggest question of what I just said. And I don't think I've been doing it for at least 25 years. I don't think my parents yet know exactly what it is I do for a living.
Right on.
So, I mean, it's kind of, I don't think the Academy quite knows what we do yet.
There's that rage against the machine.
There's the rage. So my job is easier to describe to someone usually if I say I am like the director of photography for a feature film, or a director will say, I want this film to have this kind of style or this look or whatever. And he or she is then responsible for lighting and this and that to give that look, that style. I have the same job only with sound. So everything that goes through my purview, I mean, from the dialogue, the ADR, the Foley, the backgrounds, everything, including the mix. I mean, we have re-recording mixers that bring their own, thoughts and ideas and, elevate the game. But I work in conjunction with them. And at that point also help merge the music and everything. So although I don't do the music or score the music, there's another whole department that deals just with that. But once all the elements get to the stage, ultimately it's my responsibility to, help craft the director's vision of what the film should sound like. And I think, does that explain it? I don't know. It's always hard to say. Okay.
What might also be interesting for the folks to know is that, there are classics out there. I mean, just classics that were snubbed by the Academy that you worked on that for me, are at the top, I think, of the game. And, we can take it back to movies such as Friday. Right.
And you're shocked that was snubbed by the Academy?
Yes. I
Look,
mean,
great.
that's got,
There are certain things that certain films that will not necessarily get recognized by the Academy, and for different reasons, various reasons and stuff. But each year there's so much great work that goes on that gets overlooked because it doesn't necessarily tick all the boxes that's going to be an Academy worthy film for whatever that reason may or may not be.
Certainly. But if you want to talk about tick boxes for just a second, and
Sure.
in the context of Friday, so
I love that you went back to like the oldest film in my entire list.
This is one of my
I
favorites.
was just starting out.
So the iconic phrases that everyone knows, loves, and remembers. This was Andrew's work. So, damn, all Andrew 100%, and then don't go in there for 45 minutes. You know, that one was his.
The one we actually quote all the time is, he got knocked the fuck out.
He got knocked the fuck out.
That is not me. That is some talented acting right there. That is pure and simple. That's Chris Tucker. And
what you don't know is that Andrew did all the voiceovers for. So the one where he says, "You want some of this, old man?"
I did not.
That was him.
Did not. Lies. We do sneak our voices in pretty much every movie. And we sometimes have our own. Oh yeah, and we have our own little private jokes that some of them I still probably shouldn't tell you about. But
that is so awesome.
Oh yeah, we all have our favorite little things we sneak in there. You know, the Wilhelm is so overplayed that it used to be a secret, but like now it's in everything from commercials to probably my dog's wedding video or something. I have no idea, but it's like so overplayed. My kids still laugh, and they just know I cringe when I just go. Oh. And when a director asked me to put it in, I put it in recently, and I was just like, really? Try and hide it.
That's awesome. All right. So, but to focus on some other stuff that you've done, although I think that you did peak early, and it's all downhill from there. But
you're probably right.
Popular ones, Unbroken, right?
Unbroken. Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows that one. You did Dumb and Dumber way back in the day. You're doing the new McCarthy movie, Melissa, Thunder Monsters.
Thunder Force. We did that. Yeah.
Thunder Force.
Yeah.
Green Mile.
No, Green Book.
Green Book. Green Mile, Green Book, whatever.
220, 221, whatever it takes.
Green Book.
Love Green Book. One of my personal favorites. I love that movie. I loved Unbroken. I love Green Book. Those are like, there's a few movies that really stick out and we just go, oh, love that movie.
What should I blame you for how weird the OA got?
Not entirely. No, that's really Britt and Zal. Hey, someone, you watched the OA. I dug the OA. Oh, the OA for us was it was super hard, but so creatively liberating. Both Britt and Zal love sound. We really, almost in the truest form of working with sound, letting sound help sculpt the film itself, which is really what sound should be doing, because it's at least 50% of the movie going experience. And they, we work with them truly and merge to create something.
Right.
And it evolves, in the early days, when, you had Walter Murch or whatever, who kind of coined the term of what a sound designer is. He also happened to be a sound designer, but he was the picture editor. So he was thinking about sound and crafting the story with sound, and that's really our job, is we're scoring the film with sound. Most people go, oh, you're doing sound. So you do like a car or a gunshot. And you're like, yeah, but I go, let's just take a door knock. A door knock can be really simple. It can be, like, it can be nervous. Like, like you're changing the energy. You're changing what you're telling just with a door knock. And so once you realize that, it's a little bit like learning how to drive a car. When you first start out, you're thinking, okay, stick, shift, for those of us remember what a stick and a clutch and all that. It's so mechanical. You're thinking just the mechanics all the time. You couldn't possibly become a Formula One driver right then and there, because you don't even know what the hell you're doing.
Right.
Once you get that stuff and you're not thinking about it, and now you're like drinking your Diet Coke and steering with your knee, and you're not thinking about the mechanics anymore while you're driving. I didn't really say that, DMV.
You would never do such a thing.
No, I would never really do that, but I've heard of others doing that. But once you realize that, at some point after I got the mechanics of what I was doing out of the way, I realized, wait, I'm not just putting sounds to match picture. I'm supposed to be telling and help tell the story of how either the audience should feel, how the character feels. It's always, I love when a director or a script is giving a character the ability to listen, the ability to hear, because you're telling, it helps give them a point of view, and that's how the audience watches the film, and it's how we can then help craft the story. It's hard to describe. For
Oh, no,
example,
I get it. I totally get it.
Because for like Unbroken, it's a really good example. Angie she did an amazing job with a massive story, lot to tell. And to describe sound to someone is like saying, okay, describe the color red to me. You're like,
Right.
okay, well, I want it to be, but at some point we didn't want to like hamstring her with like, I'm like, don't just tell us what you want Louis Zamperini to feel here
Right.
and here. Give us an emotional roadmap of how you're directing him, how you see it, how you're shooting, and you can tell by, is it a long shot? Is it a wide shot? And that helps me think of how I'm going to convey. Is he alone? Is it cold? Is he isolated? Is he, is there despair? All of those things. And that's what you realize, okay, that's what I need to convey. And it's learning how to use tones and what things literally push the character away from you, with just ambient noise. I mean, in Unbroken, for example, for those who have seen it, there's a long scene when they're on a raft and forever out in the ocean, and they tried shooting it in the ocean initially, but it was too costly, too difficult. So they ended up shooting it in a tank in Australia that was next to a freeway and an amusement park.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right. So we're listening, and I'm like, and it's all painted out, so you don't really realize that they're in a tank. And you're like, she's like, I want them to be completely isolated and nothing. And I'm like, I hear, J breaks from semis, and I hear kids screaming on a Ferris wheel. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be tough. So we did the best we could with cleaning the production dialogue. But
there's a button in the Adobe.
Oh yeah, it's just a simple button.
You just push it, and it's
just
background noise eliminator. I mean, just a tip.
Exactly. God. And that's for those that want to clean dialogue. Never over clean dialogue. Trust me, it just kills it.
Oh, it totally kills it so bad.
The performances were so nuanced and exhausted. I mean, and my partner in crime, we supervised the film together, Becky Sullivan. She is the most talented like ADR supervisor. I mean, beyond everything else, but she's able to work with actors like nobody else. And so Angie was, it was a long process on that film of, cutting and visual effects and this. So we had time to play a little bit, which is it's always a gift. Right. And so Becky worked with these actors for a really long time in the ADR stage and laid them down on, like one at a time, and, got them like in the room, and it was dark, and wouldn't let them drink water, and, and got them, it's dry, and they were laying down, and they had to get back and to try and get all those subtle nuanced performances. So we presented a section of the film to Angie because she was like, you can't loop it. You can't loop it. And we said, well, we're going to try. And she's like, well, you can try it, but it's never going to work. And I understand that. And she's an actor director. So she's extremely sensitive to ADR and how it can sound fake and false and lose that real raw energy. So we presented it. We had the time to kind of mix these sequences, and we played Here's One Way with the production, and it was mixed beautifully by John Taylor, and he cleaned it. We had done some cleaning, and he had done some cleaning, but there were still some frequencies there. So it was one of those rare examples where you got to see an A-B comparison. You're watching it, and you as a viewer were watching this scene from afar. And then we did it with the ADR, where we didn't have these weird mid-range frequencies that were just pushing you away. We got rid of those, and all of a sudden you were there in the raft with them, and their little bit of breath or just a little mouth smack and stuff like that. And Angie just we played it, and she goes, holy shit. She literally goes, holy shit. She goes, do that. And Becky and I kind of looked at her and said, well, we've already done all that. And for the whole thing,
Yes.
she's like,
Yes.
oh my God. I mean, and she got it. And that's what we went with. I mean, there's maybe one word, there was one yell or something in that whole sequence that's actually left from production, but it was a loud enough signal to noise ratio. We were able to clean it and save it. But other than that, it's complete ADR.
Wow.
And nobody would know that. But so that's probably too much detail of what we do. But even in that, for example, when we were doing the Foley in that, we start the Foley in that where the rafts are taut and the rubber's taut. By the end of the sequence, the rafts are slightly deflated and this and things you wouldn't necessarily know, but we're doing that with the sound and it's all decreasing. And there was a moment where I'm working with the Foley guys. Becky and I are in there monitoring, saying, okay, we're getting the sound for the raft. We were setting the tone. Like we picked the tones together and the sounds. We say, yeah, that'll work for the rafts and this will work for the plane and this will work. And there was a scene where they see a plane go overhead and, it doesn't see him. And he puts his hand down on the raft and sits back down. And I'm thinking, oh, that's great. And Dan O'Connell, who was the best at Foley, was like, he goes, no, let's do another one. And I'm thinking, gee, what was wrong with that? I must have not heard something. He did it again. It's simply a hand touching the rubber part of the raft. And he goes, yeah, that one says all hope is lost. And it was like, yeah, it did.
It does.
Just that
cool.
performance in just that hand. So that's the level of detail that everyone in their department is trying to bring to the story, and you realize, okay, what sounds push characters away, pull them together, scare them, or makes the audience feel uneasy. And how can you convey that and make them feel that? And you realize that's what I'm supposed to be doing with sound. So that's what we try to do. We don't always succeed, but we try.
I have to ask, do the directors ever just mess with you just on purpose? Like they'll come to you and say, Drew, look, at this point in the scene, I want this guy to feel like a sweet potato on the inside. And he's going to be envisioning blue rain. So we need to, we can't see the blue rain or smell the sweet potato, but this sound needs to make the audience taste it. and they're all serious. And you're like,
never that bad, but
that's what, if I were a director, that's what I would do.
Yeah, no, I've worked. So you start working with directors a lot, whether it's, the Fairley brothers or Paul Feig or, Sean and some of these people I work a lot with, and they'll start messing with us for sure. But we're messing with them where, we're like, oh, there's, like there's a really emotional moment. I'm like, hey, just take one more listen. I think this is better. And you see someone who's, it's a big moment, like someone's running off the dock to jump in. And of course we had just a big loud fart or whatever. And it was like,
I love it.
We're all laughing. And the director's like, wait, what? And then they're like, so.
And then they're all like, this is my art you're messing with.
No, they usually get it and they go, okay, that's pretty funny. Yeah. And then when it's the Fairleys, listen, we've had hour-long conversations of picking the right farts and, how wet they should be. Oh, no, we've got massive libraries.
Loose, tight,
you betcha.
So let's play a little game real quick.
Oh boy.
Because I was thinking through, last time I was like, okay, I'm trying to imagine myself as you, knowing nothing about the industry. And then, listening to all the stories that people have told about how hard it can be to work with people and how demanding they are and how crazy stuff gets. So I'm going to feed you your line. And we're going to recreate these scenes. And basically this is, what would it be like if I'm adding music or some type of sound to my intro? The what's up, fanatics? It's 8 p.m. Mountain Time, so that people can get a feel from my expert sound design point of view of what it might be like to be you. So what I want you to do now is just say, make the intro harder. Just say it.
Make the intro harder.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So this is okay. I'm like the sound guy. Oh, did I just freeze? Did I lock up?
You look like you're frozen there.
Oh my goodness. But my voice is okay.
Your voice is good.
Okay. So we're just gonna keep that pause there because this is all about the sound. This is all part of it. I didn't want people to look at me. I wanted them to hear the sound. Okay. This is harder. All right. Okay, director. I'm gonna make the intro harder. Here we go.
What's up, Fanatics? It's 8 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means another episode of Home Theater Fanatics Live. Tonight is episode 115, and we have a great episode for you.
See,
right?
that's more directing.
Right.
I
So
gave
so
the
you were the
direction, which
director.
is either faster, louder, better. Those are that's what the actors usually get. Do it again, but do it faster. They get a lot of that.
My camera's. I'm going to turn it off and turn it back on again. You know,
It's live, people.
This proves that the most important part of this is the sound. Okay, now be the director and say, make it epic.
Okay. Clearly, you thought. All right, make it epic.
What's up, fanatics? It's 8 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means another episode of Home Theater Fanatics Live. Was that good?
It was epic, but with a slight twist of your own humility. I like that. Yeah.
I really don't know how to fix the camera either.
Well, I'm just glad it's you and not me, because I'd be like all like in a cold sweat. I'd be like,
it's totally dead. You're gonna have to carry the visuals.
I'll have to carry on the entire show. Oh,
you're
boy.
the sound guy.
All right, bring in the dance. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Are you back?
A black box.
Come on back, baby.
Okay. Now, so for this last one, let's
You're
make
right,
it.
though. The show is still going on without picture. I just want everyone to realize that.
Oh, totally. It can go on without
It's
picture.
sort of called
if there was no
radio at this
sound,
point, but yeah.
if there was no sound, can you imagine?
Well, so I don't know what else you have lined up here, but I always tell people, like, if you're watching a scary movie, just turn off the sound. It isn't scary anymore. The power of sound to make film. Hey, look, you're live.
Oh my God.
The power of sound is underappreciated, I think. And not by all, there are a number of directors who get it. But unfortunately not enough. And they don't necessarily realize. I mean, I think they feel it's there to serve as like, can I hear the dialogue and stuff, but they don't necessarily tell story in sound and think in sound in terms of what it can really bring to the table. Anyway, I don't want to preach on my soapbox because I'm a sound guy, but
okay, I have to I pulled down 3 different snippets.
All right, let's do it. What's the next one? What am I supposed to
make it serious?
Oh, do this one, but this time make it serious. So I tried to act for you.
What's up, fanatics? It's 8 p.m. Mountain Time. That means another episode of Home Theater Fanatics Live. Man, I'm a natural guy. Andrew's like, what did I get myself into?
Oh my God.
This guy. Oh, okay. So let's do a little crowd interaction, right? Because
let's do it.
I mean, we've been making it about us, and it's really about them.
Absolutely.
So Hi-Fi Haven's up in the house. He's another Coloridian. I don't know. He's right down the road. So what's
Cool.
up, Hi-Fi Haven? Glad you're here. Jamie Blair, my one female listener. Thank you so much for coming on the show with us tonight to check it out. Kevin S. He runs GSG Audio right there in Southern California. So if you ever need like super humongous subwoofers for like some kind of sound studio, this guy can give you 160 decibels of soul crushing bass in your facility there. If you need to buy anything else, Matt at Brolic Media, he's a huge home theater guy, sells all kinds of cool stuff. Audio Architects, welcome back to the show. This is one of my partners in crime. He does his own YouTube channel and lives here in Colorado as well. There's so many folks. I'm not going to be able to go through all this stuff, everybody. And then my favorite one is always the Facebook user that sends a smiley face. I don't know who it is, but still
that's it.
It's like, hey man, double A's up in the house. Ronaldo Belgado. I like that.
Yeah, it's good.
I like. What's up, Ronaldo? I like. You sound that sounds like soccer. Does it not? It's like Ronaldo and Ronaldo scores, and he blow that little thing. I don't know if that is. Did you
Yeah,
ever get
well-
somebody, a director's like, and then I want you to the sound where they go, "Wah!" It's like your soccer, "Wah!" you know.
Oh yeah,
The-
I've done that.
Vavazulu, I don't. Anyway,
We've done that.
so everybody, I'm so glad to have everybody out in the audience today. Thank you for joining us and watching as we have some crazy times talking about movie sound and the process by which it's made. And we have the pro Andrew DeCristofaro. DeCristofaro with us.
There it is.
God,
Awesome.
Hey, get it out. Yeah.
It's tough, man.
Editing is wonderful, right? Post-production is the magic.
The films are made in post for sure.
I
Picture
agree.
editorial,
I agree.
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we kind of put it akin to when they're shooting, they're kind of grabbing big rocks, looking for gems in them, but then you bring them back, and that's where the picture editor starts chipping away with the director and finds like the little
Right.
gems within there. But yeah, films are broken and made, you know, in post.
So I'm gonna call out a few more things for folks out there that might not know. Bad Boys for Life, Iron Man 3, Like a Boss,
Like a boss. Yeah.
Like a Boss. You know, there was a song, Like a Boss, by Lonely Island.
No.
That's your homework.
I'm kidding.
The song Like a Boss by Lonely Island. This boss does some weird things. Ghostbusters, 2016 version. And then Mike, who that's Audio Architects, is like the biggest Ghostbuster fan ever.
Oh, good.
So,
Love it.
So I mean, he's probably over
There's
there
a-
like,
there's-
oh God, it's him.
There's a new no, or he may be one that wasn't necessarily a fan of that one. Although I'm very proud of that film.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not?
Yeah, very proud of that film.
Dumb and Dumber, like we said, but Dumb and Dumber 2.
A few
Right?
Fairly Brother films. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Quite a few.
Gosh, so I've got a list. I don't have these all memorized. Nightmare on Elm Street. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
that was the Michael Bay version.
I mean, it's awesome, right?
Yeah.
Then some like the Alps documentary. What?
I do a lot of those though. IMAX films. They're more a labor of love, you know, honestly.
Oh,
but
totally.
They're great projects to be part of. I mean, it started with Greg McGillivray doing them probably 15, 18 years ago. Started like Everest, things like
Right.
that. Some really great films.
And then probably, you know, some of the cherries on top for you. I think you did both of the Borat movies.
I did. Yeah.
Cultural Learnings of America from a Benefit Glorious Nation of Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I did that with Sasha. I did the Dictator.
Sasha, so I would love to meet some of the folks and see if the real world personality matches with the projected personality that we get on screen. You know what I mean? What's the real mix?
Well, okay. So Sasha is pretty much a genius.
Oh yeah, dude.
I mean, just
you know,
to pull any of that off. Yeah.
Does anybody remember what this is from with Sasha? Do you know what that's from?
Is that the Ollie G? Or is
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Clicking the rings together.
Yeah, no, Sasha, you know, he's brilliant. When you listen to him speak, you realize, oh wow, this guy, you know, because you watch Borat and you're like, what? But that's part of the genius, is that he can become those characters so flawlessly.
Oh, absolutely. And then he can pull off that mankini like so good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, he's one of those that, you know, I mean, he's super creative, which is both a blessing and a curse, because, and Sasha would understand that too, because when you're
I totally understand how that feels.
Not
I get it. I mean,
not from our standpoint necessarily, but from a logistics and like, we've got time. Like this last one, we were, you know, I had set up. It's such a creative flow for him that you can't hamstring him and the creativity with the bounds of, okay, you need to stop cutting so we can start mixing. It's like, no, we're mixing, and while we're mixing, we're set up and just free flowing with more lines and thoughts and ideas, and then the picture's changing, and you know, so it makes it difficult for us logistically, but it's what's best for the film. So
absolutely.
And so you just need to not hamper that creativity, because we talked a little about how many of these films come together, and the brilliance is in the ad-libbing or the whatever.
Right.
And it just constant. And, and then you find those pieces and you hone it till it gets better and better and better. And he's a perfectionist.
Talking about perfection, it makes me think, and I don't know if you've ever done work like this before, and maybe you shouldn't admit to it if you have, but working on, post-production for like a big budget porn movie.
Oh,
I mean, the Foley for that.
That's what we joke about. I want to be the guy who does the Foley for the porn movie.
The Foley for porn, right? I mean, that's
right. Oh boy, you're sick and wrong, like I am. Cheers to you.
And the director's like, no, I'm a little more moan here. Make this scene feel like it's yellow sex, right?
Oh boy.
I mean, I couldn't even imagine what that would be like. But that has to be a conversation that goes on.
I'm sure it does.
It has to, right?
If they have the money to do Foley, I don't think there's money.
Well, I did say big budget.
Right.
It's like a tentpole for some, production company out there.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure I know somebody must have done the Foley, but I don't know. Can't say I've ever done it.
Is there, that could be a business opportunity. Maybe a company specifically around, Foley for the adult.
I guarantee you somebody's already picked that one up and has got a whole little cottage industry going on right now. Porn, Foley, and
the cottage industry.
Yeah.
Oh, so movies aren't the only things that have sound design, mixing, editing, right? I mean, there's a lot of this function that goes into things like video games and those kinds of things too, right?
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
it's not just television and movies. It's pretty much any form of entertainment that we consume needs to have this kind of work done. Everything from an audio book, that has background music or whatever, all the way to me, sitting behind my computer saying, oh my God, what is the electrical hum and why is it so loud and how can I get rid of it? Right. So, I mean, this touches everything, which is kind of interesting to me. Have you had any experiences with things outside of television and cinema? Have you done any work in those areas before for anything else?
Kind of a little bit of all of the above, including even doing some sound, like Ghostbusters, for example. There was all sorts of toys and products and things. So
right.
we wanted the sounds to be authentic from that particular thing. So we ended up, I was sitting there while we were mixing half the time, not half the time, but a lot of times I'd be like designing stuff on my laptop. All right, this will be work for this. This will work for the blaster. This will work, and shipping those off. But, a lot of us do ancillary work for games and so forth. I mean, talk about big budgets. Those are huge budgets and take years. And it's a whole different, not different, but it is a different thing because the mixing is live mixing in within the game engine and so forth. And you get characteristics of, so it's a little different, but they have cinematics that are mixed traditionally. But yes, we've done all of those things, and even coming up for sounds for, sometimes for logos or hardware.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's like
sounds for hardware, sounds for, certain different things, commercials. I really started in commercials, which were super fun. Got to do it all. I think I got my feet wet in a lot of different avenues there. It kind of brings back to a discussion you and I were sort of having before we went on too, about like all the different home environments and how people are listening to sound.
Right.
And to me, I mean, I couldn't be more of an enthusiast for people to have the best home viewing system. It's because we put so much passion and soul and everything into it, and knowing how much it brings to the experience, to not have a viewer get half of the experience because they're listening to a tinny little speaker, or, because, it really adds so much to the experience emotionally and stuff. And you go to the theater and you see a trailer, and how often do you see people go, I'll wait for video on that one, or I'll go see that one in the theater.
Oh, I've said that myself. Yeah.
and I have to say, I've done it too.
Oh, yeah.
And there are certain ones, but I got to say, it's still, even the size, the immersion of a screen is important and stuff. But it's having a little, having the consumer be a little bit more aware of, even say just video, like making sure you switch your television off the vivid setting and go to cinema mode and turn off the soap opera effect and all this other goofy looking stuff that, people are sitting here spending hours and hours and hours color calibrating and doing all these things to make sure it looks exactly right in the tones. And, and you've got it set to this blaring, cartoonish
saturated.
looking, it looks terrible.
Extra saturated.
And, it's hard to say, like we do preview screenings all the time. In fact, literally I walked off a dub stage and walked into this it's kind of a Atmos design pre-dub room. Because we're mixing a temp dub for this film that we're going to preview this week. And I've been, so each film I work on has at least 3 previews, probably 2 to 3 previews, at least, I would say. So after doing this for 20, I've got 125, I don't know how many movies under my belt. So you start going, times 3, you're like, wow, that's 300 screenings you've gone to set up and, for previews. And it's amazing to go to the theaters and, some of them sound great. And some of them I'm like, oh my gosh, people are listening.
Oh yeah, it's horrible
in here. I'm like, this is, I remember this was a long time ago, but I was doing a preview. It was a movie called Slums of Beverly Hills. It goes way back.
Oh, that was awesome.
And
what was her name? I can't remember her name. The actress.
Marissa,
anyway.
Yeah. So I went to the preview screen to set it up. And it was in Santa Monica on 3rd Street Promenade. And I'm thinking, okay, it's got to be great. I mean, it's in Santa Monica. I mean, this is Hollywood heaven. There's got to be good theaters. I get there. And I, being the sound nerd, I brought my own, SPL meter and helping the Dolby guy out. And I'm like, I'll go down. I'll tell you. And he's like, all right, I'm going to start pinking the room. And he goes, okay, here's, left channel. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, here's center channel. I'm like, are you sure that's center? I'm on the walkie-talkie. And he goes, yep, that's center channel. I'm like, turning around going, okay, well, that's coming up with surrounds. And so we asked the manager, and sure enough, people have been watching movies in Santa Monica with the dialogue coming out of the surround speakers. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Oh my
God. So
we
eventually we started to do we fix the room? And it was such a mess. We had to pull that and go to a different theater. And so it's shocking to see that kind of stuff. There was a question I think you had regarding.
Well, I've got a whole list that we need to run through those.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. Anyway, I digress, and I'm moving on to.
So let's do that. So I've got a list of questions.
Okay.
And maybe we can just rapid fire these, because I think each of these questions would lead into like a 5-hour episode.
With me, they probably would, yes.
But I think we can just tag these out because folks demand their questions be answered, and so
excellent.
We've got to give the people what they want. Okay, so what makes for a great Atmos track, and why don't all audio engineers get it right? And you can call out names if you want to.
That is an interesting question, and really there is no simple correct answer. Certain films will utilize what you can do in Atmos better than other films. So not every film says, oh, gee, I need to have, something overhead or, the first film I did in Atmos, and it was one of the early films, was Iron Man 3. And in fact, there was only a handful of stages that were equipped. So we mixed the film, knowing not in Atmos, but knowing that it was going to be mixed in Atmos for another 10 days after we finished the 7.1 dub.
Right.
We did the 7.1, the 5.1, and then we did the up mix, but we planned it out. So we had color coded things that we extracted out of the stem and knew that they were going to become objects that we could pan and move around. And honestly, it was kind of the first chance for all of us to really play with the medium. And we all were under we're thinking, okay, it's going to be super cool. We're going to have all these Iron Mans and they're all going to be flying around. And we realized, that doesn't work. And the coolest stuff that we heard was the backgrounds, honestly. And you go, backgrounds? And I'm like, yeah, the backgrounds.
Sure.
Because so you have binaural hearing. And when you're in a restaurant, I can hear you. My brain can listen to you because I can spatialize it. That voice is coming from right there. I can focus there, but tune out the rest of the world. Atmos gives me that ability again to say, okay, I can put nice specific things. Your brain will hear it and it knows there's certain cues all around you. But because I have more point sources and I can, decide where to listen with my head, your brain can feel more detail. That's why those tracks, if they're done well, have a lot of texture and a lot of detail, but you can still hear the articulation and the clarity of it. Versus the more you compress all that sound into smaller and smaller point sources, it gets harder and harder for your brain to say, well, where is it really coming from? Hence why, like people with hearing aids, like I am trying, I would love to solve this problem. When they go to a restaurant, they can no longer tell exactly where it's coming from, because even though there's voice here, it's married equally to here and there, and it within the microphones. I mean, they're working on ways to improve that. But if I recorded just us talking in a restaurant, it just, you would lose any point source of that. You know what I mean? It's tricky. So there is no true, like what makes it a good Atmos track. I mean, to me, it's if it helps convey the emotion of the story, that's a good Atmos track. I mean, to say that, I used to read the reviews of DVDs or Blu-rays, and we would all kind of laugh because someone would rate it and say, oh, this had excellent use of the surrounds, or the subwoofer was really good. I'm like, who cares? I go, does it do the job of telling the story? That's our job. Not like, did I use every channel? I can tell you, Dolby said when we mixed Ghostbusters, they had never used all the channels of the Atmos, and we did. And at some point you're like, I had ghosts flying, I had this. Your brain can't track it all, it's an art of, it was a little bit of like, okay, yeah, we had all this stuff going, but at some point you're like, all right, I got to weed some of this out so that it makes sense,
Well, I'm going back and watching Ghostbusters again now. That's all I'm saying.
There's some good stuff in there.
I got to check that out again.
But it was a busy track. Yeah.
How do you select the projects that you work on? Or do you have, like the evil overlords say you work on this project?
Oh, no.
You're like, yes.
I'm fortunate that I have a lot of repeat people that I work with, because, whether it's a Paul Feig or Fairley Brothers, like I said, or Sean Anders, or whoever, or film editors, or, I've worked with Jeff Ford several times. I've worked with, a ton of people. And it's a little bit of, there's things you're asked to do. And sometimes you go, oh, it's for a friend. I want to make sure they get it. And it's not really great, but I want to help them. And there's other times you go, boy, I really want to do this movie. And, sometimes the one you want, you don't get because they want somebody else,
Sure.
You don't always get to pick them.
That's how my wife felt when she got me. She's like, I really want another dude, but
yeah, but you're all I got.
Yeah. So
it's a little bit of, like I said, you only have so much time, and, there's times where you're committed to someone else already. And I never like to overextend myself, because
certainly
it's you really throw yourself into it and have to live it, breathe it, and think about it like 24/7, and think, oh, I could fix that, or this would be a better way to tell that emotion. And you have those ideas in the shower or whatever, and it's hard to do a lot. I mean, but sometimes you have to, because one extends and one pulls up, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, I got to finish this one and start this one. And so it's not necessarily, I get to pick some to a degree where I'm like, I really want to do this movie. And some of them I go, well, I'd like to do that movie, but they already have somebody they like to work with. So I don't necessarily get to, you know what I mean? Because everyone kind of teams up with their people that they've created a shorthand with, and you start seeing repeat,
Sure. Yeah. You bring out the mod squad, and like, we're getting the gang together. We're making a movie.
Exactly. And so everyone kind of, gets their little click together and start working together. And, you try and reach out, and sometimes someone's busy and let me help you out. And, you branch out this way and that. But, like I said, every once in a while, there was a Papillon movie. I knew the producer had it was really, really budgetarily challenged. And the producer said, I didn't want to ask you, but I was like, I love the original. I would love to do this. So it became a labor of love, and it came out really well. I mean, it was super budgetarily challenged. But
just like my YouTube channel.
but you go after it because you go, I want to work on this. I mean, that spoke to me. Like Green Book, fortunately for me, was Pete Fairley, but that was like, it spoke to me on so many levels. I mean, and it's such a great movie. If you haven't seen it, you need to watch it, Giles.
Everybody, if you haven't seen it, absolutely, so because he gets royalties on every view.
I don't get a single penny. I wish we did, but we don't.
He gets way more than a single penny.
I wish we did.
That would be cool. That would be cool. Okay, question.
Yes.
Jamie says, how does Dolby Atmos cinema content transition to home theaters or private small theaters? I guess that is, maybe the comparison between the full blown cinema, some commercial cinema compared to a home theater.
So if the question is Dolby Atmos, I mean, Dolby Atmos is it's 128 channels, which really, I mean, 128 channels of audio, or objects is what we call them. And then we have a 9-1 bed, which is the left, center, right, left side, right side, left surround, right surround sub, and the stereo overhead. That's your 9-1, which leaves us with 118 other objects. And depending, I believe it's 64 total speakers in the theatrical setup, something like that. But most of us are not going to have that at home. And in fact, the normal setup is like it could be a 7-1 or 9-1 with, it could be 4, maybe 6, depending on the configuration. You can have
like I'm doing 914. So
yeah, it's perfect. That's a perfect setup. And we actually we will do a home Atmos mix. And Dolby, so everybody in the audio world has been working with Dolby for as long as, since the 70s, for sure, since it was invented. And so, I mean, we know the engineers, we know these guys personally, and they would come out and we'd do the print masters and stuff. So we were involved early on with like we'd go to Dolby and they'd play, okay, what do you guys think about this? And what do you think about that? And what if we do this? I mean, they were asking us the whole time and working together with us, like, well, what about the interface? Once we, kind of went in a direction, what about the interface and how this, so the system has gotten pretty well integrated into the system at this point. And we can, the way the renderer works, we can mix in Atmos, hit a button, and it does a fold down to 7-1, which translates really, really well. And we know certain areas where we go, oh, there's too much energy that came down and it's too far forward. So we'll just tailor that one music cue back a little bit, or the effect came, certain things like that. And then from there we go down to a 5-1, and there's a huge jump from 7 to 5. And not in a good way. I mean, 7 actually sounds brilliant. 5, which was the standard for everything. But having that extra set of point sources is huge. And then you get to 2 and all that other stuff. And then we do a near field mix where we actually lower the level that we're listening. So, theatrically we're at 85 as a reference level on main speakers.
Sure.
But when we do a home version, we'll turn the reference level down. We're on near field speakers, smaller speakers. Yep. And by doing that, anything that's a little bit too low, we end up raising a little bit. We try to do this with the same mix team that will keep the integrity of what the director was intending.
Right.
So that we don't, something that should have been inaudible stays inaudible, but something that, oh, we really need sure we hear this line or this effect or music cue is lost. The music cue lost a little too much low end because it's too low, blah, blah, blah. We try and accommodate for all that so that you're not chasing the volume at home. I'm a huge fan of doing that as long as they keep an uncompressed version. I am not a fan of delivering only that version to the home market, because I feel like there are people like, I want to hear the full dynamic range of the theatrical mix.
I think everybody that's watching this show is like that.
I would think everybody watching this should, ask for that as well. I've fought for it, but I'm not always in the winning chair of that. It was at some point a terrible learning lesson that a lot of these home mixes were being sent off to other facilities that directors didn't know about, creatives didn't know about. I mean, it was literally being shipped out and they were being mixed, decisions were being made. And I'm like, I'm like, what is going on here? You know, I came in once. Anyway, long story, I'm digressing. So did that even answer your question about the home mix? So
no, I think that was great, but
okay,
you know,
I could go on for hours about this crap. So
and we like it, but you know, there's a group of folks that are enthusiasts around, you know, viewing movies at home, and one of the things that they'll look for, you know, a new movie will drop, you know, on disc or whatnot. They'll grab a copy and they'll take a look at it, and they go in and they'll identify that, okay, somebody put in like a 12 decibel slope crossover to knock out everything under 20 hertz.
Yep.
Right. And it's just all filtered. And then they reverse engineer that. And they're like, okay, this is the reverse filter that you need to apply to this to kind of bring it all back. We're not, you know, we can't create the material, but we can boost it back up to where we think it would have been if they hadn't put that filter in beforehand. So, I mean, there's all kinds of folks out there that are trying to fix things like that.
Yeah, there was a different standard. There's kind of been an ongoing debate from up north, let's say, and down in Hollywood, whereby some people would filter on the monitor section, which is a little bit scary because you could be printing but not hearing what you're printing.
Sure.
Versus what we would monitor, which was everything. And it exposed quite a few things a few times, and there was debates back and forth between here and another place. Not by here, I mean Hollywood and another place, which I am a huge fan of, by the way, and I won't say any more than that.
Don't say it.
No, and they're awesome. But it was an interesting philosophical debate amongst engineers and everything like that. And you know, one a little bit where I said, hey, look, I just want to know what I'm putting on the track. That's all, you know? So because if you only filter on the monitor section, then you don't know what you're doing, because you could be printing God knows what down there. And, you know, you know, we don't rely. I know one of the questions I think may have been about subwoofer and usage of subwoofers and stuff. And I'm a huge sub fan, but it's also the least reliable tool in our bag of tricks, because because you go to a theater, most theaters are not going to have the subs that you want. You know, I've got them on my dub stages and I've got them in spades and I can, you know, rock whatever. But even stage to stage, you know, bass sound is a really, really tricky beast. And the tuning of bass is extremely tricky. So even going from, you know, sister stages that sometimes, well, this one, and well, if you stand just a little bit off to your left, you know, whether there's nodes in there or not. I mean, so, and then when you go out in the field, you know, and by in the field, I mean, you go into a theater and you go, oh gosh, you know, I leaned so heavily. Yeah. I've leaned so heavily on this bass to carry this deep, you know, throb or tone and emotion or the spaceship rock, you know, and you go, there's nothing there.
It's just
so I actually make it one of our things that we do a bass minus test to make sure, how is this going to play without the sub, and make sure it still has integrity in the mains. And then if I can get the gravy on top, you know, so I try and make sure it still will hold together. Because I made that mistake once and I was like, oh, never do that again.
That's cool. I mean, I love the way that, you know, you're so thoughtful about how this is going to present out to everyone, right? Because not everyone is lucky enough, you know, or knowledgeable enough necessarily to build a system that can reproduce that, but you still want them to have that emotional experience when they watch the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, sound for me became a passion early on. I mean, my dad instilled it in me with hi-fi, you know, and that was like our weekend thing. We'd go to different hi-fi shops and stereo hi-fi shops, and we'd go and listen to every speaker that was available. And, you know, I mean, that was like our thing. And we'd get a pair and we'd live with them for a while, from, you know, Klipschorns to Meridians to, you know, Kefs to Macintosh or whatever. And, you know, and I'm in the middle of a home remodel, and I've been looking for speakers for like 5 years that I'm going to say, okay, because I really want hi-fi sound. But the thing that always bugged me, and then I go, okay, I want to play one of my movies, you know, and it's like, and then you hear the compression driver like fatigue, and it's just like, you just go, so it's like, well, and it's hard to get a dynamic speaker sound, because you have like, can rock the room with these big old JBLs, but I wouldn't necessarily want to play hi-fi on them, because that's not what they're meant to do. And this dealer I was working with, now I'm switching to a pair of speakers that I found that I don't think I can really afford, but I'm going to try and talk my wife into it. But
let's hear it. I mean, everybody at this point, everybody's all like, what's it going to be?
So the guy my wife, and look, my wife's the best. She's like, oh, we're going to end up with big old speakers in our house, and that's fine. And because I'm like, she knows this is what we do. That's what I do.
That's the moneymaker,
right? I'm like, yeah. She loves music, and she loves movies too. And so, but this dealer I was working, they said, you should go listen to these speakers, and they're Wisdom audio speakers.
Oh yeah, Wisdom's awesome.
And so, yeah, but I honestly, I had never really heard of them. Right? I'm like, what the hell's a planar magnetic speaker? And I read the site, and I'm like, this sounds like mumbo jumbo gobbledygook or whatever. And unfortunately my dealer had just signed up with them, so he didn't have any to audition. He said, well, you should just go up. For me, it was just up in Carson City, which was like a short 40-minute flight. I'm like, okay, I'm not doing anything. I'm going to fly up there and listen to speakers because I'm a nerd.
Well, welcome to your
the
family.
Club. So I flew up.
Yeah, because I'm about to fly to Indianapolis to listen to some speakers.
Okay, right. Yeah. So I flew up and met this guy, Ron, who was like, I don't know what Ron does. He's the VP or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll have him on this show one of these days if I can work it out with him.
Ron's awesome. And so at least he took me through the whole thing. It was up at the factory. We went through the whole thing of like the different lines. And I was like, because I didn't even know which speakers to say to listen to. And I said, when I emailed them and I went back and forth, and I said, oh, by the way, I want to have one of my movies to listen to too in your theater. And I said, can you have Unbroken queued up? And so it was funny to hear, after we got past all this stuff, to hear like, well, what did you think? Well, so I'll explain that. So I'm listening to music with Ron. We're going through things. We get to the level that, my dealer said, listen to these. I'm like, okay. So I'm listening to these and I'm like, man, these are awesome. But I didn't want to get too excited because I knew every time I liked a pair of speakers that have that hi-fi and the detail and the openness and the quick transient response and everything that, when I play a movie and put an explosion through it, it's just going to go, and I'm like,
sucks.
Yeah. So I'm like, all right, great. Well, let's go to the theater, and I know what's going to happen. They're going to suck. And I'm like, so we go in there.
Your number one fans online, by the way, just
look at that. Is that what my wife just said? Something there?
I assume it's your wife or your daughter or mother or somebody with the same last name.
That's my wife.
Hey,
hi,
Allison.
sweetie.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for allowing him to have huge Wisdom audio.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I know, right? So I go in the theater and I'm sitting there, and the opening sequence, the beauty of the opening sequence is there's no music, and it just allowed the effects to play. Because if you want to soften an action scene or you want to soften something, put music on it. If you want to leave it raw, and that's George Falsey taught me that. He's a producer. He worked with Landis for years on American Werewolf in London and Trading Places.
Oh,
Brothers,
yes.
Coming to America.
Such good stuff.
George Falsey, great friend, sweetheart of a man. And he was like, and I did a couple of films with him, and he was like, all right, put music over it, takes all the edge off of it. So sure enough, Angie and she's like, no, with the big open aerial battle and stuff, she goes, no music, that's just raw war machine. I'm like, yes. And so
all my YouTube videos now, no more background music, because I want to be raw.
Well, no, it's got its time and place. Everyone has its time and place, but I get it. No, I totally understand. That wasn't the time or place for it.
Exactly.
So anyway, I'm sitting there with Ron, and I go, look, I want to hear it at reference level. He goes, well, the theater's so new, we really haven't calibrated reference level. And I go, okay, well, can I turn it up to what I believe is? And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, great, I'm going to have like woofers like blown through the screen, and I'm like, oh, I got to go see I have no idea what these can do. So I start turning it up, and I look over at Ron, and I go, are you nervous? And he goes, a little bit. And I go, that made me nervous, but I turned him up, and I said, okay, I could tell by the dialogue, within a couple of dB, yep, that's right where it should be. And boy, I was just blown away because they had the dynamics. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, where have you been all my life? And I literally called my dad on the way home, who's now 89 years old, and said, Dad, I finally found the speakers. And he's like, what, really? Still. So from, however many years that's been, oh my gosh, it was.
Yeah. He's all like, son, now you're a man.
No, not so much. He was like, "Can you afford them?" I'm like, "No."
Now you're a man. He's like, are they Clipshorns?
We had those. We had the Clipshorns.
Oh,
And
Clipshorns are awesome.
those were rock and roll speakers, baby. But
That's exactly what they are. That is a great description of them. They are.
I mean, but it's got that compression horn driver, and it
is what it is,
and sings and hurts, and
and then you're all the blood. They say you're not having fun until it bleeds, right?
Oh, been there, done that. Anyway, so those are awesome. I'm a huge fan.
I have to point out one thing to you, because we're 1 minute over the show length, and we can go a little bit longer. I don't want it to go too long, but now when anyone comes to my home to check out my theater, or we watch something, I'm always going to queue up Unbroken.
You should,
and I'm gonna play that. I'm gonna like, oh yeah, my buddy did this. He's a cool guy. He did this, and he said that I should play this for everybody. So I'm gonna totally name drop you. I'm like, yeah. We were just chatting about this the other day. He said you should check out this scene.
There are, there's so many good movies to listen to. I mean, one that my kids heard over and over when I was testing stuff out, wasn't one of mine, but it was War of the Worlds.
And, Tom Cruise.
The scene where the I forget, whatever, the robot, the alien machine is coming out of the ground the first time, the low end and stuff. I'm a huge fan of that track because it has lows, mids, highs. It's very clear. It's very creative. It's fresh. It's articulate. I mean, it was really brilliant. Really, really well done. I was picking on my friends up north, but at the same point, absolutely like geniuses in terms of stuff. Like, you watch a track. I used to watch like Jurassic Park or whatever, and you watch Jurassic Park and go, for example, like the scene where the T-Rex is pushing in on the car, and you see the kids move back like this. Somebody go ahead and watch it again, but realize like every time there's like, they go boom, boom, boom there's a thunderclap like 3 times right as the girl moves back like this. And it's the kind of stuff that you don't notice, but it affects you so emotionally. I mean, you watch The Rock or whatever like that, and you would say, you see someone get up out of their chair, there's a full-on cougar growl with the guy getting out of his chair, right? But once I pointed out to you, go, what the hell's that doing there? But emotionally, it was just,
it's funny. I used to, on my YouTube videos, mix in animal sounds like that. And it's kind of subtle until you realize what's going on. And then you're like, that was a hippopotamus.
Right. Oh yeah. Now, look, for sound design, we always start. I mean, animals are such a great place to start, whether it's an alligator, a pig, or whatever, a camel, a llama. I mean, and you slow it down. You have, really hi-fi recordings with, like 192, 24-bit, blah, blah, blah. And you can really slow them down, get away from the aliasing, and you get some beautiful organic sounding stuff for, all those creatures and so forth. But, that's a whole sound design thing, and that's sound design as people think of sound design. But the true version of sound design is more the Walter Murch theory of sound design, which is crafting the track with the picture and everything else. That's true sound design. Because sound design is not just the creatures and all that crap or a loud explosion. And that's unfortunately what it's become. And people go, it was the big loud movie. It's like what you're saying, what's the energy, the flow with the dialogue. It could be the subtle movies are the hardest movies to do.
I hear you.
Because there's nowhere to hide. It's you got to tell all the emotion and still make it disappear.
We also have Katie in the house with us tonight.
Oh my goodness!
So it's a family.
The whole family logged in.
That's right. They're like, our dad's finally made it. He's on Home Theater Fanatics Live. He's a thing now.
Oh my gosh! Oh boy!
I'm glad I could do that for you. I know you've been looking for
great fun. I love it. How can you not love that?
Oh, okay. We're going to seriously shift gears here, and what normally would be 30 minutes of an episode, we're going to power through in about 3 minutes, and close this bad boy down. So, usually I talk about content for a while, but we've really talked about that. But one thing I do want to call out, and I'm not going to do my intro for this section. I'm going to skip it, man. They have music and everything. But I've been watching Jupiter's Legacy, and that's a new one on I guess it's on Netflix, and it's a superhero point of view, but it's also like a coming of age story for the superheroes' children, and then it's also a backstory set in the Roaring '20s when these guys got their powers, and stock market crash and all kind of crazy stuff going on. Was that the '20s?
Yep.
Yeah, it was Great Depression. So if folks haven't checked that one out, you go watch Jupiter's Legacy. I really like that. And then another thing that I just picked up by accident, which is also on Netflix, and I can't remember the name of it exactly. It's like Love, Robots, and Death, or Loves, Robots, and something. And it's like a series of like 20 shorts. They're like 8 minutes long or something like that. And it's really great. They're all animated with different styles of animation, all the way from like cartoon style to hyper realistic to rotoscope to all kinds of stuff. But that's a really good one as well. So for you, anything that you've watched recently that you say, okay, everybody's got to see this. You just got to see it. But don't say Falcon and Winter Soldier. Everybody's seen it. Don't say WandaVision. Everybody's seen it.
Haven't seen either one.
What that means? You're not everybody.
See?
You're somebody.
Oh boy. Well, okay. And everyone's probably already seen this one, but I was telling everybody to watch Dark because I thought that was awesome.
I haven't seen it.
You should watch Dark. I thought it was super cool. It was really interesting. I'm on the fence. I made the kids watch it it's like, do you want to watch subtitles? It's a German, it's a German project. So the English version is not great, but I didn't really want to watch the subtitles. I don't know. So it's up to you, but fascinating. And
I usually do the dub just because it's easier to deal with.
Yeah, that's kind of what we did. And I liked it so much, I ended up letting the kids watch it, and they really enjoyed it too. And I just started one of my friends, well, actually a whole group of them, like one was the producer, one's the sound designer. I just started watching, and I hadn't read the books, and so far I'm intrigued, but I'm only 2 episodes in. But what is it, Shadow and Bone?
Yeah. It's like, oh, let me cut myself. Oh, I blinded you. Yeah.
Yes. Right. Okay.
Yeah,
and I'm
like,
like,
it looks awesome. I haven't started it yet. My
the
wife and I are
production
gonna watch
value is amazing. I was like, wow, this looks really good. It sounds really cool.
Don't these television shows nowadays? Well, I remember when I was young, they would make episodes for $2. But don't series now feel like big dollar theatrical releases?
You know what? Showtime, Netflix. Wow, Netflix is going to yell at me. Netflix has been awesome.
They have been awesome.
They've been awesome.
And if people don't watch Netflix, they really need to, because it's a game changer.
What it has done is, it's a different marketplace. Netflix doesn't look at, like, in film, the model for film is, out of 10 film, what is it, like 7 of them are going to lose money. 2 of them are going to maybe break even, and one's going to be like a box office success that paid for the
that'll
rest
carry everything else. Yeah.
Right. And
Nothing
it's kind of like
then.
that's been the model, roughly, ballparkish, not necessarily, but ballparkish. But Netflix is like, well, we've already got this, we've got this revenue stream. It's not, so we don't look at, it's like the OA, we would try and say, well, how do you track this? Or, and they had all the data and the info and who's watching what on tablets or this or that. But they don't necessarily say, oh, we need to make this. It's not about that. There is like, okay, we want to provide something that people enjoy, obviously, but it wasn't like, oh, I need to. They're willing to take chances, and they're willing to let things go out there. So, I love that. And because of that, they're filmmaker friendly, and they don't say, oh, we have to be able to market this to, a 4-quadrant thing that's going to hit the right demographics for, 30-year-olds and the kids. And, it's like, they're like, just make something interesting and have a voice. It's kind of more the old school, when studios were run by filmmakers versus, lawyers, and some
Sure.
are still, but and I understand what they have to deliver. So that streaming revenue and marketplace lends itself to creativity. I don't want to see theatrical go away, because it's an experience that is unique, and hopefully it will come roaring back once this stupid COVID thing is done.
Man, I'm waiting.
Yeah,
Dune is coming soon. Dune is coming soon, and I'm all about that.
I think that's gonna mean, and Mark Mangini, a good friend of mine, sound designer. I thought some of the coolest stuff was, 2049. There's some genius stuff in that. Blade Runner.
Oh,
2012.
yes, there is.
Some genius stuff in that.
So good.
Yeah. Stuff I was like,
The eyeball scene at the beginning.
I'm like, I haven't heard some of these things. I mean, and that was, and but that, see, to me, that's like true sound design, because it was helping, it was crafting the story, the emotion. It was all part, and it was synergistically, intertwined. And it wasn't just like, here's, because sometimes the way we're treated, we come on at the end, it's like, okay, now throw some sound on this. Like, well, okay, but you didn't even think about it. So here's a perfect example. Like, you'll be in a coffee, filming in a Starbucks, right? Or a coffee house. And they're like, well, I need an espresso machine. I'm like, well, it'd be great, except you didn't shoot one. So here's the espresso machine that's making sound. And they'll go, what is that sound? I'm like, had you just shot a picture of an espresso maker, and I could have attached that sound to it,
it would be
know
so
what
much
that
more
sound
meaningful.
is.
Yeah,
exactly. So
yeah.
it has to be with thought. There's certain sounds you can get away with, which is a phone ring or a horn honk, because it's so well established that you know what it is. But sometimes you're in a tenement area and you want to hear water through pipes. I'm like, if you can at least show that. Otherwise,
Right.
we do that. I can't tell you how many times, like, I want to hear like water through pipes. I'm like, yeah, but you don't see them, and I can't really. So you do it, and people are like, what's that sound? What? And so it's a matter of, sound needs to be part of the process from the beginning of the process, not an afterthought. Like, oh, now we should throw sound on it.
Oh, I get it. But to roll back to the whole Netflix thing.
Yeah. See, how did I end up with coffee makers and Netflix? I mean, so this
is how it goes, man.
Yeah.
And this is me, like, back on the rails.
Thank you. Exactly.
But yeah,
my wife
Netflix,
and kids are laughing now, going, "Yep, this is dad."
This is dad.
Yeah.
But just, if Netflix is out there, watching, and I know they are, and we know that Netflix is a risk taker.
Yep.
This is like the next big thing. I mean, they don't know it yet, but this show, they gotta pick it up, right? They can option it for me for $2. Let's do this thing. Come on. One day,
it's good, Giles. Aim high. I like that.
So one day there's going to be
big,
somebody that's got executive producer credits on a bunch of stuff is going to be like drunk, and he's going to be like, or she's going to be like, I think this is a great idea. Come on, lawyers, just have them sign. I'm going to be like, I'm in Hollywood. I did it. Oh, so that, yeah. Now my deep, dark, secret desires. Netflix. Okay. All right, we got to move on. We got to move on. We're 13 minutes after, and we are now in the cleanup section of the episode, and this is where I make all the announcements for things that are coming up. So, upcoming projects on Home Theater Fanatics. Do you want to know what I'm doing next? Because I want to know, and I'm going to tell you because I know. And that is going to be the M18X Har bottle subwoofer build. Now, this is a quasi build because it comes all put together, and then you're like, why is that DIY? Well, you still get to finish it to make it look the way you want to, but the actual box is already put together. So if you're in the market for an acoustic suspension or sealed subwoofer that's 18 inches and does a lot of sound and digs down low, like 10 hertz low, this is one to check out. So keep your eyes out for that video. It'll be coming in 30 days or something like that. I still got to go buy stain or something, and and then I got to figure out how to put it on, but it'll be fun to follow along in that video with me and see exactly how poorly I can affect that physical construction work on the box. This week's video, as soon as editing is done, is going to be the Acurus A2002 stereo 2-channel amplifier. And I love Acurus. I use the Act 4 Pre-Pro in my home theater, and I'm doing the 9.1.4 system off that, and it does 20 channels. It's pretty badass. But that's this week's video, hopefully dropping on Friday if I can stick to a schedule for once. We'll see what happens. But everybody that's been watching, and all the people that will be watching, thank you so much. I appreciate you. The most important thing and the most valuable thing that you can give anyone is time. Even more important than TLC, but I'll take TLC too. But spending time with me and the guests is, a precious gift, and I really appreciate it. So thank you so much. But subscribe anyway, because I like those too. And next week's guest is going to be Chris Seymour, Seymour of Seymour Screens, Seymour Screen Excellence. So come find out all about the video piece of this. We've been talking about audio today, and next week we'll talk a little bit about, that thing you put on the wall that your projector points at, and how cool and how much of a differentiator that can be in your environment. So we have come to the end of the road. I need melancholy.
Oh,
I need blue melancholy music. That I'm going to come up with that. I'm going to cue it up
need
whenever.
Scotch.
Yes, blue and melancholy.
I'll
So
settle
that's
for Diet Coke.
I'm drinking this water right now, y'all. I'm going crazy tonight. It's a party. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. It has been an honor and a pleasure having you on. I really can't say, how happy and thrilled I was to have you come on. And I know everybody else is as well. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun. I mean, we could have, there's a lot to talk about. Still like 3D audio for headphones and all sorts of
so much. And
so much stuff.
And, I want to do a whole episode about ASMR with you. And all that stuff. I'm going to start a channel, and the whole channel is just.
Well, there's some stuff I know you really want to do the whole, but we've been designing. That's pretty good, actually. That sounds pretty good.
I need 2 of them so it can be a stereo.
Oh yeah, no. I didn't want to start a whole new thing. I know we're wrapping it up, but there's been some really cool stuff that Sony's been developing that I've been involved with for the last couple of years with true 3D, like it's called Audio 360 Audio or Audio 360. I forgot how we're naming it, but like we have tiny little microphones. I sit in the Cary Grant Theater at this stage, other stages. I run a sample, so it's based on the shape of my ear. And
right.
So when I'm cutting at home or wherever, and then it's calibrated with these headphones, I can audition. Okay, let me hear it's going to be in the Cary Grant, how it's going to sound in
really
here. And it's like spot on. Like when you're in the stage, and the first time you do it, to this day, people still go, "Wait, you hear the sound on the speakers, and then you know, the second now we're going to hear it on the headphones, and everybody you take them off because wait, I'm the only one hearing this, and everyone's standing around looking at you like I don't hear anything, and you swear it's coming out of this speaker, Atmos speakers." It's awesome.
That's
it's
crazy.
Actually, that technology.
The hairs just stood up on my arm.
Well, that technology, I think I can talk about it, is incorporated in the PS5.
Okay.
So that, that's a whole nother, you were talking about game engine and stuff like this for real headphone, sound below you, sound, or it's real. It's awesome. It's
That's
super cool.
So cool. They have bed channels now. Soon they're going to have like bedrock channels.
Bedrock channels.
Bedrock channels.
I love that.
Well, it's just another way to sell, 9 more channels of speakers.
Yeah, right. I know. God,
my system's 9.1.4.4.
And you're like, what?
Coming. Yeah, and pretty soon there'll be like a anti-gravity technology to make you float up off the floor in your chair so that you can have the speakers underneath. And
I'm in it. Let's do it.
Whoop. All right. We are going to stop now. We're done. Enough.
I know. We're supposed to be done.
Thank you so much for your time. And I'll be happy and would love to have you back anytime in the future. When you get a wild hair up your butt, just be like, "Hey man, I'm doing that silly show again. Let's do this thing." And you're welcome. Again, thanks. And thanks to everybody else out there in the world. See you next week. Make sure to tune in because you're going to want to know about these screens because you're doing it wrong if you're not doing it the way that we're going to tell you about next week and you want to know. So thanks everybody. See you guys in the next video.